story begins with our main character, named Hyun-sung, falling from a building, shocked and wondering why he is falling off of the rooftop. It is such a shame. He was going to graduate soon, and he endured all those hardships for this, so he doesn't understand why it all just lead to this. However, what he is sure about is that this is the day he went to sleep permanently. 3 months later, inside the hospital's ward, the relative of Hyun-sung suggests to their grandmother to pull the plug on him since he was diagnosed as a vegetative person, which the grandmother doesn't like to hear, because she still believes that her grandson will soon wake up, while Hyun-sung can hear all the things they are saying. At a later time, the grandma sits close to Hyun-sung while holding his hand, trying to wake him up while she wonders how did this happen to him. Hearing his grandma worried for him, he tries to comfort her, but he knows that his voice couldn't reach her, so he was more determined to wake up soon. However, in this dark world, there wasn't a thing he was allowed to do, so a few more days have passed. His grandma was still beside him, but she is sadder than before, because those bastards keep telling her to give up on him, because they don't understand why she doesn't want to do that. She took care of him since he lost his parents, so there is no way she will give up on him ever, and she still believes that he will wake up, so she asks Hyun-sung to give him a sign that he is alive, even for just once. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung is desperately telling his body to move, but wasn't able to. Then a few years passed. He was visited by his younger brother, telling him that he couldn't hold on much longer, because those bastards who did this to his brother were now targeting him. At the same time, their grandma started working in a restaurant to earn money for his hospital fee and ended up injuring herself. So he asks his brother what he is supposed to do, because now he only wished for his brother to have just died. They wouldn't have suffered so much if he just did. Now helpless and crying his eyes out, he asks his brother to wake up and just stand the fuck up, while Hyun-sung has now lost hope to ever stand up, or even die at his own will, because he couldn't even shed tears. So now he is delusional while thinking that it is all just a dream, and if he endures just a little more, he is sure he will wake up from this dream. 3 years later, he was still in a coma, noticing that his little brother Hyun-jin hadn't visited him for a long time. He then overheard the nurses are overjoyed that his grandma couldn't visit him anymore, because now they could increase the volume of the TV. Hearing them take his circumstances lightly, he felt rage within him. He then remembered the faces of everyone that had wronged him, even those teachers who were covering those bastards up. So if he somehow gets a miracle of going back to that time, he will destroy every single one of them. Now rage in his mind, he is thinking about how to deal with the people who turned him this way, and making it as brutal as he possibly could. But beating them up on the verge of death wasn't enough. Not an act of simple revenge like this could satisfy him. From the beginning till the end, regardless of the means and methods, he is going to make a plan to thoroughly root them out, so that they can never crawl up again, so that they face more pain than he suffered. With this, he thinks of a perfect plan that will destroy everything they got. But 10 years have passed. He was still bedridden, no one with him, and all of this does not matter to him anymore. So he begs someone, anyone, to end this life of his. And so, he opened his eye, only to be greeted by himself. Talking to himself somehow made him feel relieved, and before he could process what he said to himself, he noticed that it was morning already, and he was now in a familiar place. Realizing that he was back inside his classroom, he assumes that this must be another dream about that day. So he pinched his face to check if it was real, but to his surprise, it hurts. Still, the simple pinch on the cheek has not convinced him yet, so he gets his pen and inflicts pain on himself. With this, he is convinced that he has come back to the past, but before he can celebrate his return, his attention was diverted towards the bully from their class, busy harassing someone, just because he was told to do something himself, which he was triggered, assuming the other kid thinks he was incompetent to do anything by himself. At the same time, shock was written on Hyun-sung's face, since he realized this situation is the starting point of all his pain. So without hesitations, he stood up from his seat and approached the bully, to tell him to stop. Now that the bully's attention was redirected towards him, he started talking smack, and threatened Hyun-sung. But before he could finish his provocations, Hyun-sung excitedly connected his fist to the bully's face, because he came back to the moments he had been wishing for so long. Before all of this happened, we are brought to the day when everything in his life changed. He can still vividly remember what happened that day. Park Min-chul was listening to the class half-heartedly, He was a typical case of a bully who harassed his friends, and he enjoyed the game called Legend Online, so he then decided to approach Lee Jung-min. Since Lee Jung-min was smart, Park Min-chul assumed that he was good at playing games, and that day, Lee Jung-min became Park Min-chul's game shuttle, and because of this, Lee Jung-min, who was at the top of his class, began dropping from the list, and because of enduring Park Min-chul's request to pour his personal money to buy game items, Lee Jung-min's stress reached the tip of his head, and so he asked Park Min-chul to do it himself. That day, it was his first time seeing violence committed in front of his very eyes. He didn't want to cause any trouble, but he recalled that Lee Jung-min kindly helped him with his studies every now and then, so he just couldn't watch Lee Jung-min being beaten up without any friend helping. But before he could act, someone from his friend group stopped him and advised him not to be involved with Park Min-chul. He knew what he was talking about, but he was always good at sports and didn't fall behind in the boys' pecking order, and Park Min-chul's name wasn't so intimidating for him, so he still went to deal with him. Since the teacher came shortly after, the situation was roughly handled, but ever since that day, Park Min-chul's gang began to harass him like hell. Every day, he was dragged by Park Min-chul's gang, and without a day to recover, he was beaten until he was a mess. Even after school, there were days when he could not sleep due to their bullying, such as running errands for games, and there was no other way to describe his situation but hell. However, him returning means all things that happened will be different now that he successfully punched Park Min-chul's face. Everyone was surprised about it. Even Park Min-chul couldn't believe it. So when he turned to look at him, Hyun-sung grabbed his head in order to knock it to the desk. Now blood covered his mouth. His fellow classmates couldn't believe that Hyun-sung was always this badass. However, he wasn't done teaching the bitch a lesson. Therefore, Hyun-sung strikes him again, because this moment, this situation, he engraved it in his head as he fell comatose. And Hyun-sung can easily dominate Park Min-chul because he knows his fighting style solely relies on his physique, and Park Min-chul is not used to being hit, so he is bound to collapse if he gives up his first attack, and that is why Hyun-sung strikes first. And the moment he tries to react after getting punched in the face, Hyun-sung also calculated grabbing his hair and slamming his face right onto the desk, because he endlessly simulated this whole scenario for the past 10 years. And even this next move, kicking his face, knocking him to the wall, Park Min-chul won't know how much he has waited for this moment. So Hyun-sung does not care whether Min-chul was beaten to death, and if he raises his face, Hyun-sung will kick him in the face. If he blocks with his hands, he will break his hands. However, before Hyun-sung could deal damage even further, a chair was suddenly thrown towards him, which he successfully dodges it without any problems. So he turns towards the one who did it, only to see a bunch of hooligans ordering him to stop, to which he asks them what they are going to do if he does not stop. Seeing that he doesn't look scared even for a bit, made Jung Min-ho thinks if Hyun-sung has gone insane, and because Kang Chang-suk is the strongest in the group, he didn't hesitate to approach Hyun-sung. But before they could start the fight, one of the students informed them that the teacher is approaching. Therefore they decide to go back to their rooms and finish it later. But before they leave, Kang Chang-suk threatens Hyun-sung, telling him that he is fucked as soon as he finds him after classes. Now that the class started, Park Min-chul was processing what happened to him, and couldn't believe what just happened, so he was enraged and threatening Hyun-sung in his mind, while thinking of ways to deal with Hyun-sung after the classes had ended, and the other guys are going to gather here once class ends, so he is more than confident to deal with him. Now he assumes that he was beaten by a nerd only because he was caught off guard, and he wasn't planning to bully Hyun-sung. Even though Hyun-sung was the class president and used to intervene every now and then, he never crossed the line, so he never had to mess with him. But now that Hyun-sung crossed it first, he is sure to leave him half dead as soon as the class ends. Meanwhile, the other bullies are looking at the clock waiting for the class to end, talking about what happened, and thinking of why Hyun-sung acted up as if he had backups. Still, whatever the reason was, Kim Hyun-sung looked down upon them in front of everyone. If they left it like that, the other guys would also start taking them easily. So even if they received the request, they decide to use this opportunity to trample on him for sure, so that Kim Hyun-sung will never look at them with those arrogant eyes ever again. Soon after the classes have ended, the teacher leaves, so Park Min-chul hurriedly stands up to deal with Hyun-sung, but to his surprise, Hyun-sung's feet were already flying toward his face. knocking him out for the second time, and before he could drop to the ground, Hyun-sung catches his head to prevent him from fainting right away, and tell him face to face that they should continue from where they left off. With this, Min-chul was dumbfounded, as he wonders why Hyun-sung wants to fight them. At the same time, the other bullies stood up and went straight towards Hyun-sung's class, but as soon as they arrived, they were shocked to see people gathering outside. Now Jung Min-ho realized what was happening, therefore, they immediately ran towards the scene. Arriving at Hyun-sung's class, they were shocked to see that Min-chul's face was beaten up so badly already, but they were more surprised when Hyun-sung greeted them and was waiting for their arrival. Seeing that he managed to beat up their colleague, Chang-suk charges at him, but little did he know, Hyun-sung had endlessly simulated this scenario when he was comatose for the past 10 years, and he had no problem with taking care of Park Min-chul, but the biggest problem he had was this guy, Kang Chang-suk. It was easy to beat Park Min-chul, but he couldn't find a way to beat this guy with the strength he had at the moment. However, the answer is simple, and that is doing things he couldn't think of doing before. So he just had to take a piece of metal and shove it into Chang-suk's temple, because fair play is inconsequential, and to achieve his revenge, he has no reason or time to be picky, so he follows up another attack, since no matter which kind of workout Chang-suk has been doing, he is sure even he can't handle getting hit by an iron. Now that Chang-suk had lost consciousness, he threw the trash toward them, leaving the other conscious bullies completely in shock. But before they could even process what happened, Hyun-sung used this as a chance to use all his weight to tackle Cho Yeon-taek, so that if he drops him down like so, he won't ever be able to react to the next attack, and he doesn't care if Jung Min-ho is going to attack him from behind, because it is better to finish Cho Yeon-taek once and for all, for him to win a battle where he is outnumbered. With that, he left Cho Yeon-taek all bloodied up and unconscious on the ground, without Hyun-sung blinking even once. However, exerting this much effort in dealing with these guys, he noticed that his body is not fit enough to follow his plans through. Nonetheless, he can't stop here, not yet, because there is one more douchebag remaining. While Jung Min-ho is stupefied even to move, since he is completely caught off guard by Hyun-sung's strength, because he assumed Hyun-sung is just as strong enough to be out of the bully's target list, but now that he saw it with his own eyes, the Hyun-sung before him is just like a monster. With the situation that he was in, he knew that he couldn't beat Hyun-sung by himself, and as he was now in the range of Hyun-sung's fist, he couldn't stop his hands from shaking. So when Hyun-sung went to strike him, he flinched, but luckily for Jung Min-ho, the teacher arrived and was able to stop the fight before his face got all juiced up. With this outcome, Jung Min-ho regained his smile. Since there are 3 students who have ended up bloody, Jung Min-ho was sure that Hyun-sung was in trouble. Inside the teacher's office, the teacher scolds Hyun-sung, telling him that there are boundaries, while planning to avoid his responsibilities as an advisor and putting all the blame on Hyun-sung. But before he could finish his threats, Hyun-sung calmly tells him that there is no need for him to overreact, because it is not like this is the first incident of violence in school. Hearing this left the teacher dumbfounded. Therefore Hyun-sung tells him to do the thing he is good. He can just use that skill of his, burying the case without escalating things, burying this up so he won't get in trouble. With this statement, the teacher reacts violently, which Hyun-sung already calculated, because, just like he expected, this is the reason why he died. He didn't die just because of the harassment alone. The cowardly adults who were busy keeping their nose out played a big part on it too. He clearly remembers how Kim Young-chul, the advisor of the first section, lived as a piece of trash who couldn't even be called a human being. So before Kim Young-chul could slap him again, Hyun-sung advises him to lower his voice, and if he won't, he can't help but tell others that he has been receiving bribes from his parents, especially from Jung Min-ho's parents. Even if it is not that, there are other things he can say. For example, an affair with the English teacher. Now that Hyun-sung sees that his words finally went through his teacher's head, he tells him to better fucking stop, and calls him a piece of shit. In Hyun-sung's previous life, after enduring bullying somehow, he finally came to a decision. He knew it wasn't that good of a solution, but he went to look for the teacher, thinking he needed the backing of an adult. However, the teacher didn't do much, believing Park Min-chul's reason, telling him that they were just joking around a bit, and since he is quite a big build, Hyun-sung must have misunderstood that he was bullying him. And for that reason, They ended up settling the matter just like that, while Hyun-sung was sweating like crazy since he knew what would happen next. After leaving the teacher's office, because of what just Hyun-sung did, they are as pissed as ever, and Park Min-chul orders Hyun-sung to follow them. Soon after, Hyun-sung is getting beat up by the group, while he is cursing at his teacher, since he lets him down, thinking the teacher was just ignorant and believed the bully's lies. However, as he was getting beaten up, he saw his teacher, and since the teacher saw the violence with his own eyes, Hyun-sung believes that the teacher would realize the severity of the situation, and definitely help him. But his assumptions were dead wrong, because the teacher only feigned ignorance of his situation, and turned to the other side. With this, Hyun-sung realized that his teacher, Kim Young-chul, was a coward, and he only later found out that he is also a scumbag who used to accept money from parents, and Jung Min-ho's parents were one of the sources of his income. He had no intention of solving this matter in the first place. After that, he tried his best to solve this matter, even if he had to do it alone. Even knowing that he couldn't win this fight, swinging his fist, he struggled to escape this hell-like reality. And so that day was particularly violent. However, with his retaliation, Minho's parents have the audacity to complain to what happened to their son, making his grandma apologize to them. At the same time, Jung Min-ho happily blames him because of what happened, completely turning the situation against him. Because of the intervention of adults, it was an area where he couldn't do anything without his parents. Even on the school violence committee, he took the punishment alone, and Park Min-chul's gang went through their school life without any problems. Since then, falling into a coma, he only realized later about the fact that he can't exact revenge with mere strength. Even adult intervention must be completely resolved, so that he can take revenge in the true sense of the world. Now we're brought back to the present, with Kim Young-chul's face filled with shock from what Hyun-sung has just said. However, he tried to scoff it off, thinking Hyun-sung was bluffing. Unfortunately for him, Hyun-sung was deadly serious, as he advises him that from now on, when he speaks to him, he should think carefully before he utters any word. And in order to take away all the doubts in Kim Young-chul, Hyun-sung tells him that he knows Kim Young-chul was introduced to Jung Min-ho's parents through a university senior. So he has been taking care of Jung Min-ho even before he entered this school, and as a reward, he received a payment every month. And also, he has been having an affair with the English teacher, a married woman with 3 children, and they often go to Motel M. Seeing Kim Young-chul's face, Hyun-sung knows that Kim Young-chul finally realizes that he wasn't bluffing, so he asks him if he should say more. And since Kim Young-chul is surprised by this, he can't respond. So Hyun-sung continues insulting him, berating Young-chul that he has lived such a dirty life, to the extent that this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. If all of his malpractices are revealed, his life as a teacher will be difficult, so he advises him to don't even think of considering this as nonsense. And if he is going to act like that, even he has to quit this school, he is still going to trample on his life, leaving Kim Young-chul stupefied even to respond. Hyun-sung knows all of this, since by the time he went up to the 3rd year, Kim Young-chul's private affairs were revealed. His wife came to school, slapped him refreshingly, and stamped the divorce papers, and it was later found that Kim Young-chul's family was relatively well off, and it was also rumored that everything that could be called property belonged to his wife. So if that is true, he is certain Kim Young-chul fears his affairs being revealed the most. With all this, Hyun-sung was so sure that there was no way this blackmail won't work. So after Kim Young-chul completely processed what circumstances he was in, he apologized to Hyun-sung, and asked him what to do. So without hesitations, Hyun-sung tells him that if he wants to shut him up, he suggests to keep up the attitude he has been living with. But this statement confuses Kim Young-chul, so he asks, to which Hyun-sung clarifies that he should keep living like trash in the future, remain idle onlooker on the students' matter, bury them even though he knows it is wrong, but only the subject will change. From now on, he will do it for him, and prevent this incident from exploding, regardless of the means or methods. And if he follows his instructions until the day he graduates, he will never reveal his secrets. With this, he knows what Hyun-sung means. Still, he is a coward, so he bows his head, telling Hyun-sung that he will try his best. After that sweet interaction, Hyun-sung stepped out of the office and is now walking down the hall, while thinking of his plans, and that Kim Young-chul is only the first card he thought of beforehand. so he must hasten to prepare the next card. However, for now, there is something he must do. Meanwhile, Jung Min-ho is having a tantrum inside his classroom, thinking he is the shit, not realizing he is just the shit of a human being, while threatening Hyun-sung loudly, knowing he wasn't around, acting all tough. And since he knows that Kim Young-chul has been receiving money from his parents, Jung Min-ho assumes that Kim Young-chul would expel Hyun-sung, so he is sure that he won't have to come across Hyun-sung, and he won't have to wrap his head around him anymore, because to be honest with himself, he was scared shitless. But still, to prevent others from doing the same, he acts up and throws a table across the room to threaten everyone, because he thinks he is the predator of the school, so he will never allow his status to plummet into the abyss. After all the tough guy act, he sits down, still thinking he is the shit. Therefore, he tries to convince himself that what happened must be a coincidence, so if he meets Hyun-sung again, he is sure to destroy him easily. But before he could fool himself, Hyun-sung opens the door and calls him out, shocking Jung Min-ho immensely, while Hyun-sung tells him that they should finish what they were doing. With Hyun-sung approaching him, Jung Min-ho realizes that he fucked up, and soon after, his face connects to Hyun-sung's fist, completely knocking him to the ground, and as soon as he looks at Hyun-sung again, he only sees a demon approaching him. But before he could react, Hyun-sung's feet were already on his face, and before he could faint, Hyun-sung pulls him closer to strike him consecutively, preventing him from saying anything. Even asking for help was impossible for him right now, while Hyun-sung is enjoying every moment of it. Now seeing Hyun-sung's reaction, Jung Min-ho realized that Hyun-sung is a lunatic. Receiving multiple strikes to the head, Jung Min-ho was hoping for someone to save him, so after looking everywhere for it, he saw Kim Young-chul looking at them through the window. Therefore, he was convinced that this was going to be over soon, but to his surprise, Kim Young-chul just feigned ignorance of the situation, and then to add to his hopelessness, Hyun-sung advises him not to expect the slightest bit of help, because no one in this school will ever help him. Before this happened, 5 minutes ago, Kim Young-chul was frantically shaking in his chair, at the same time, in deep thought, and because of what Hyun-sung has just said to him, he tries to convince himself that this incident is beyond his abilities. Of course, the school wouldn't want the situation to escalate. Still, if he doesn't punish Hyun-sung properly, the parents of the victims will make a fuss about it. Jung Min-ho's parents, in particular, will never turn a blind eye when it comes to their son, and since they are wealthy people who own several residential complexes and are well-known figures of Daesan, they didn't spare any financial support required by their school. The school renovation was recently finished through their donation, since their subjects specially handled by the principal. There is no helping that their influence must be strong. More than anything, the biggest problem is that he received money from them too. Once they begin to make shit out of this, even someone like him won't be able to do anything. So with all the problems stacking up against him, he panicked, while thinking of a solution. Therefore, he came up with a solution by separating Jung Min-ho from this situation, since Hyun-sung has yet to mess with Jung Min-ho. So if he just convinced his parents, they might sit on the sidelines in this particular case. After all, those brats are only friends of their son. If he finds Hyun-sung and requests him to at least not mess with Jung Min-ho, it won't be the worst situation yet. Finally having a foolproof plan, Kim Young-chul didn't hesitate to run and find Hyun-sung, but as soon as he arrived at their classroom, he realized that it was too late. So when Jung Min-ho looked over at him, he just feigned ignorance, because he knows that it will be over for him once his relationship with the English teacher was revealed. Now in the present, Hyun-sung wasn't done dealing with Jung Min-ho, while he was still enraged, because he remembers them looking down on him, bullying him daily throughout the 3 years of high school. These bastards used to blame him, telling him that he is in this mess, because he was so weak. However, looking at them trembling like this, when he has barely started, fills him with more rage, because now he has no choice but let go of Jung Min-ho, to avoid killing him instantly. After this, he went over to his seat, and looked at Jung Min-ho's state, to look at how idiotic Jung Min-ho was, and he did all that, knowing if he just didn't mess with Jung Min-ho, the rest of the guys could be covered somehow. But if he were going to choose his opponents in his revenge, he wouldn't have punched Park Min-chul in the face the moment he returned. Rather, he would have chosen to live a peaceful life while avoiding those bastards. However, after going through his hell-like life as a vegetative patient, He only dreamed of intense revenge, and this was